Hey everybody, welcome back to Group Week. I'm so excited to be jumping back into our dating series together today. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who came out to The Rising this past week. What an incredible night. Season 3 of The Rising off to such an amazing start. We saw 48 middle schoolers and high schoolers put their faith in Jesus, which is incredible. So thank you for coming out strong. Hope to see you back on October 4th. For our next Rising. I hope this dating series has been helpful for you. I hope that it's caused some really great conversations in your family group. And so today we want to jump into a really big conversation around setting some boundaries for your relationships. And so this simple phrase that I've been thinking about is that decisions determine direction, and direction determines destination. And so the decisions that you're making right now, I know it sounds crazy because you're like, man, I'm just a 10th grader, but the decisions that you're making as a 10th grader are setting your life on a course, on a path, in a direction. And that direction is ultimately going to end up at a destination. And so although you're in 10th grade, yes, I want you to think about what's the destination that you want? What's the kind of marriage that you want? What's the kind of family that you want? Maybe you've had a jacked up example in your own family and you're like, well, I know I don't want that. Well, here's what I want to challenge you to do. I want to challenge you to think about what is it that you do want? What do you want it to look like? And then let's backtrack. That's going to happen because of a direction. And the direction is going to be set because of these decisions you're making as a 10th grader. And you're like, man, that's like a whole nother season of life. Like, I'm just trying to go to the high school football game and go to prom and have a good time at homecoming. Like, can't we get to that later on in life? And then I want to go to college, and then maybe I'm going to get a job. And then maybe after that, I'll worry about getting my life in order and settling down and getting married. And I want to go, yes, I get all that. And it does seem very far off, but it's directly connected to the decisions that you're making right now. And so I don't want you to think, oh, that's off in the distant future. I want you to go, no, I do want a good marriage 15 years from now. I want the best marriage around 18 years from now. And so I'm going to start making decisions today that are going to help make that possible. And so, in the world that we're living in is so crazy. We're living in the most hyper-sexualized generation of all time. It's everywhere around. I mean, like, it's in every commercial. It's like I was watching a commercial with my nephew on the couch the other day, just like watching ESPN and a commercial came on. I'm like, man, cover your eyes. You don't even have to look around to find these things anymore. Or you can just be looking at something so innocent on your phone, on Instagram, and you hit the explore page and you're like, oh man, I don't need to be looking at that. Or you can walk through the mall, to get like a new charger at the Apple store. And before you know it, you're walking past the store and you're like, man, I don't need to be looking at that. It's just everywhere around us. And the culture is slamming down our throats. Do what feels good. Do whatever you're drawn to. Instant gratification is the ultimate goal. And I want to go, yes, I get that's what they're selling you. But let's look at what the destination all these people are arriving at and go, dude, is that what we really want? Because it is, yes, what everybody else is doing, but what everybody else is ultimately getting isn't what I want, and I don't think it's what you want. And so we're going to have to do something that looks different from what the rest of culture is doing so that we can arrive somewhere separate from where everybody else in culture is arriving. And I want us to talk about that. I want to have clear boundaries in place so that we can stay on the rails and not fall off into these pits that people fall off into that derail them from what God has in store and what God's best for your life is. And so you go like, well, why is it such a big deal? Like, why does it matter so much? Just everybody else is doing it. It doesn't feel like it's that big of a deal. So why are we making such a big deal out of it? And I want to just say to you, it is a really big deal because God created everything, okay? He created you, He created me. He created this beautiful gift of marriage. He created the beautiful gift of sex. And when He creates, like the best things that He creates, He always creates them within boundaries. So like He created the oceans, but then He said to the oceans, okay, like you go here and you go there. And whenever the oceans end up coming on where the land is supposed to be, then we've got problems because they're outside of their boundaries. Ben Stewart wrote in his new book that I hope you'll all get, he wrote that physical intimacy or sex is like a fire. And so if you put a fire into a candle, like one of these fancy, expensive anthropology candles in it, and it has this awesome smell and it's beautiful and it's awesome, it's inside of its boundary. Or like if you light a bunch of logs in your fireplace and you have a fire on a winter night, it's incredible. It provides warmth for the house. It's beautiful. It's right within the boundaries. But if the fire's in the middle of your living room floor, it's no longer beautiful, it's destructive. And so the gift of fire can be beautiful or it can be destructive. It all matters on, is it inside of its boundary or outside of its boundary? And physical intimacy, sex, is the exact same way. It's not, like some people have said in the church forever, it's like, oh, it's this, like they've taught the young people, it's this disgusting thing. You don't need to think about it. It's gross. It's wrong. You don't need to think about it. And I want to say, no, it's incredible. It's a beautiful gift from God, but he created it to be experienced inside of the covenant of marriage. And so all these physical intimacy lines, this gift of sex is beautiful if it's inside of its boundary. But if it's outside of its boundary, it's destructive. Like looking at something on a computer screen that was meant to be beautiful, but when you see it, you know it's destructive. Or like if you have crossed a line before in a relationship, you know instantly in the moment. Or just afterwards, you're like, man, that left me with some guilt and some shame. Yes, because it was experienced outside of where God intended it to be experienced. The book of Genesis, early on, right after God creates everything, he creates Adam, he creates Eve, and then he says this, he says that a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, experiences physical intimacy with his wife, and they become one flesh. So like these two separate people, this miracle, God says when you experience physical intimacy, when you experience sex, it's like an adhesive. It's like glue. It's like this sticky substance that keeps us together. And so in the gift of marriage, in the covenant of marriage, this physical intimacy is a gift that's supposed to help us stay connected through life. And so that's why, like, have you ever noticed anybody, or like you had a friend or something and you're going, why in the world are you dating them? Like everybody else, all your other friends are like, what's wrong with you? Why are you dating them? What do you see in them? But if you've crossed over a physical line, there's an adhesive that's happened. And you can't really explain it. You're like, I know I don't need to be dating them. I know that there's probably somebody who's better for me, but there's part of me that's attached to them. Yes, that attachment is because of physical intimacy is a oneness, is a uniting thing. And so you don't want to be attached to anybody unless they're telling you, I want to be attached to you for the rest of our lives. That's where it's meant to be experienced. So you're like, okay, well, what do I need to do? So how do I stay on these guardrails? Here's a couple of practical thoughts. When it comes to physical intimacy or anything like that in our dating lives, we tend to make it such a private thing, because we don't want to talk about it. But if you make it a private thing, you have no accountability. And so I want you to find some people, ask your family group leader, ask some other girls in your family group or guys in your family group to help keep you accountable. If you're drawn towards a computer screen and you're looking at things that you don't need to be looking at all the time, you need to get some brothers in the trenches with you that are going to help you when you're tempted to look at it. You need some people that are going to go, what destination do you want to get to? Okay, well, we're going to make the decisions right now to make sure that we're on the direction that's going to ultimately arrive at that destination, and I'm going to help you get there. You can't do it alone. It was never meant to be done alone. So invite some other people into it with you, and then make some real practical decisions in your life. Like if you're dating somebody, date out in public. And you're like, no, well, we have better conversations when we just have a movie night at the house when their parents are out of town. I'm like, yeah, I bet you do. But this is not ultimately a wise decision that's going to put you in a direction that's going to end up where you ultimately want to arrive. So people always ask the question, well, okay, well, is it wrong for me to do this? Or is it wrong for me to do that? Like, we've been dating for a couple years now, so is it okay for us to do this? And I think a better question is it wise for you to do that? Is it wrong? I don't know. Is it wise? You typically know right in the moment if it's a wise decision or not. So keep the destination in mind and make the decisions today that are going to help you arrive at that destination. If you're watching this video and you're like, man, This all sounds great, but I jacked that up a long time ago. I have messed up so many times that I know the destination is gonna not come true for me. Then I just wanna remind you today that you are following a God who makes beautiful things out of ashes. And so maybe you've screwed up time and time and time again. Well, it's not too late for you to start making different decisions that are gonna set you in a different direction that will help you arrive at a different destination. I hope you have great conversation in your groups. I love you. We love you. See you soon.
Thanks for joining us. If you're a high school student in or around Atlanta, we would love to get you plugged in to one of our family groups at Passion Students. Head to our website for more information.